Thank you, Director General. This is my last intervention at the TNC HODS, as I am terminating my post at the end of November, and I will unfortunately not be present at this week's General Council meeting. For that reason, please allow me to share with you and colleagues a few words of farewell. The last 4 years have been the richest professional experience in my life, in which I have developed a wealth of information, contacts, and understanding of the world as seen through the lens of trade. I find multiple parallelisms between the realm of trade and the realm of peace, which is the lens I previously utilized to view and understand the world. Trade is one of the most tangible scenarios through which peace can be forged. In times of so-called trade wars, what I see is an immense opportunity for peace through trade. Among the wide variety of lessons I have learned during the past years, there are 3 particular ones I would like to share with you today. The first lesson is that an organization like the WTO is a public good, and as such, it is not susceptible to the paradigm of disruptive innovation that has become dominant in the field of business during the last couple of decades. That innovation paradigm refers to creative destruction, through which you destroy what already exists by creating something better, faster, cheaper to replace the status quo. With a public good, this is hardly possible. Public goods are at the mercy of the tragedy of the commons, where ownership is diffuse, leadership is scarce, and there seems to be no sense of urgency. So any attempt at disruptive innovation on a public good hardly illustrates creative destruction and feels more like destructive destruction. If we want to reform the area susceptible of improvement, we must have a very clear collective sense of purpose, or why improvement is needed. A very clear collective vision about how these improvements would be implemented, and with a clear collective intention to create shared value, making sure every member will contribute and be better off at the other end of the process than with the existing status quo. The second lesson is that development must be intentional. There are no special formulas that can be copy-pasted from one country to another. A nation must show resolve to make progress through the firm aspiration of achieving prosperity for all its citizens. This means that before development becomes a multilateral or a plurilateral endeavor, it must first and foremost be a unilateral effort. It also requires sustained commitment through various generations of government officials to make steady, if slow, pace forward. Moving 2 steps forward and then 1 step back is all but ineffective. Also on development, you have heard me say many times that technology is today a great tool to help members leapfrog their developmental challenges. Nevertheless, I have come to the realization that technology is merely a tool to scale up solutions and to make them cheaper. The trillion-dollar question is which solutions, for which problems, at which costs, for what benefits do we want technology's leapfrogging effect? To illustrate, we have been speaking for almost 3 years about the 4th Industrial Revolution, trying to identify what it means, what opportunities it brings, what pitfalls must be avoided. Meanwhile, more than half of humanity still lives in what could be considered as the clash of revolutions, still struggling to move on from the first industrial revolution, unable to fulfill the coverage of electricity, which was the promise of the second industrial revolution, while there are more than 4 billion people without access to ICT infrastructure, which was the promise of the third industrial revolution. So as we speak about the wonders of artificial intelligence, albeit urgent and necessary, we cannot overlook where more than half of us still stand in our path and pace of progress. The third lesson is that context is everything. The context in which this organization turned the century was configured in the Doha Round. That agenda needs to be updated into the present context of geopolitical, socioeconomic, and environmental constraints. Any topic discussed in this House should be tested regularly against two large contextual accelerations that have already started affecting every human activity and will do so in the immediate future: climate change and the recently mentioned fourth industrial revolution. Since the Paris Agreement, the world has been moving decidedly fast towards climate action. How this will affect agriculture, energy, transportation, manufacturing, or international investment should be studied closely at this House. Coming back to the fourth industrial revolution, it is a series of disruptive technological innovations that are shifting long-standing paradigms. Artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, and the replacement of human labor. 3D printing and the replacement of large manufacturing, logistics, and consumption trends. Blockchain and the fast, reliable, and trustworthy cross-border movement of capitals without intermediaries. And quantum computing, the next generation of computing power and speed. This hopeful voice might seem contradictory with what I mentioned before regarding technology and development. But the truth, the fact, the reality is that these are transformations that are happening before our eyes at a very fast pace. And this massive wave of change cannot be stopped or blocked or delayed or derailed, let alone by politics. Technology has been consistent, bypassing any and all regulations that have become obsolete. This House should take note, especially in its negotiating function. The next 10 years will see accelerated penetration of these business trends in the entire universe of commerce. And the question we must ask ourselves is, how can the WTO influence them through the lens of trade? I wish to conclude by thanking all of you for all the lessons you have taught me, for your kindness and constructive engagement in absolutely every interaction we have had. It has been an honor to represent my country, an exciting adventure to be here during these memorable years in the history of the multilateral trading system, and a sincere pleasure to have met you all. May peace prevail in trade. Thank you.